Happy Monday. I'll give it a couple minutes for everybody to get on. Can you guys hear me, Michael, Kathleen, Kathy?
Yes, I hear you.
Good morning.
Morning. So, how was your weekend?
That was good. Open house.
Busy?
It was steady. It wasn't, crazy. It gave you time to get more information. So it was actually nice.
So, how many people did you have show up?
7.
And do you have a process for following up afterwards, Kathy?
Yeah, I did yesterday.
Very good. So when we get our teams, we just need to make sure that we instill them because they watch what we do. Give it another moment for everybody to come on. So let me put my screen up. So grooming experts to navigate change is what I wanted to talk about. And with all these changes that are going on, NAR changes, they're going to provoke real estate commission rules and regulation changes because right now in both, actually in all the states that we operate, there are some changes that are proposed that are contrary to our state licensing law. So to become an expert in the field, it's going to require a combination of knowledge, skills, and achievements. Experts, and this is like a definition from Google. So I just want you to know, and then I want to kind of go into how this relates to what we need to do as team leaders. Becoming an expert in the field requires a combination of knowledge, skills, and achievements. Experts are often called upon for advice in their profession because they have extensive knowledge or ability based on research, experience, or occupation. They also have the skills to know when and how to use their knowledge. I think it's more appropriate than ever. The definition of an expert is a person who has a comprehensive and authoritative knowledge of or skill in a particular area. And to become an expert, you must have knowledge of the subject material and know what is required to be successful in a real estate transaction, and now the required contract and local market conditions. So, what's required to be successful in a real estate transaction? I think everyone on this call has either the awareness or just the natural ability to figure out how to pull two people together in a transaction. It's not as easy to teach that part. And I think a lot of our team members and new participants into the industry come in under false expectations from having watched a TV show or series, and they don't understand what it really takes to be successful in the business. Now, with these changes, we need to better understand the new contractual provisions, local market conditions, and have the ability to communicate both. Okay, so we need to be able to not only share with clients what it takes to negotiate a transaction, but we need to explain the process. And I think we're going to have to do that to a confused public. Does that resonate or make sense with any of you? I know I'm putting out a lot of words and thoughts. Yes, no. All right. I don't know if you guys can all hear me, right? Michael, Gopi?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So during the next, now it's less than a month, we need to know stone cold all the forms and the way to communicate these changes to the public, because we're going to be dealing with a public that is, somewhat shell shocked. They're going to be pressing us on, the information. As soon as you say, I need you to sign something, what do most people do? They resist. They're going to push back. They're going to pull back. So we need to explain how this is in their best interest and highlight the parts that are in their best interest to get them to take action. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going against our industry for people to transact. Number one, you're going to start hearing people saying, I'm going to wait for the interest rates to fall. There are going to be people saying that rates are going to fall because of the election. There are going to be people who are saying, I'm going to wait for the election to see how it goes. I guess the population, even in a state like New Jersey or Florida, which tend to lean one way or another. Maybe it's, 4 or 5 points one way or another that swings it. So there's going to be certain segment of the population, no matter what the outcome is, that are going to be disappointed one way or another. And I think we need to keep our team focused on business happens regardless of political outcome, monetary policy, insurance conditions, interest rate conditions. Ultimately, people aren't going to decide not to eat because the low cost of bread has gone up a few bucks. People still need to move and do what they're at. They still need to live their lives and de-emphasize the media and the negative parts of our business. And I just want to say, when I stay at the hotel, I usually pick up a paper, and papers always, we talk about how the media always has the negative spin on stuff. The money section says surging home equity comes with downside. So they can make it negative, the fact that homes are appreciating. Leave it up to the media to do that, to put a negative spin. To be an expert, you must have the knowledge of subject material and know what is required to be successful in a real estate transaction, how you need to offer it, what terms and provisions sellers will accept. The required contracts and local market conditions are also critical. We need to be able to explain with clarity the new agreements. We need to be able to anticipate objections, and we need to know that our ability to address objections is what separates us from the rest of the crowd. It's what makes home buyers into homeowners. It's what gives people the fortitude and strength to transact in the business. We must possess the communication skills and strategy to share the above with clients and prospects. Experts have a way of carrying themselves in an aura of confidence that inspires action and results. Like it or not, as team leaders, you're role models and you're under the microscope, both in terms of your actions and inactions and your results. Okay, so team members, buyers, sellers, they're all looking at, how we engage, how we react. So if you thought being a team leader was easy, if you thought you're just going to have people do the work for you, it's not. It's the best, it's one of the best roles you could have. A little bit less administration than, being in the brokerage ownership business and all the benefits of, watching people grow and mature and succeed. I don't know, Lynn, did you have something that you wanted to say? No? All right. So I also put a little clip here on here. 2 skills you need to master if you want an extraordinary life. It's a little Tony Robbins clip. It's like 8 minutes. I'll make sure I share this with all of you and you can go back to it. But, if you know that you're being watched and people are taking cues from you, you'll behave differently, right? You'll focus more on being that role model that all of our team members need to help us move on. And I know for one, Glenn talked last week about, recruiting, and he mentioned that he was doing doing 2 sessions. One of them was on understanding the paperwork and the change. And I think you said that was what, 5 hours, Glenn? I don't know if you're able to.
Yep, that's correct.
And you basically went through like the documentation changes and legislative changes so that the agents understood. And then I believe you're going to have a second one where you're going to talk about how you communicate that to consumers, like the
Yeah, and in fact, I had someone from Keller who told me how they knew everything, their paperwork was in line, all was ready to go. And then I said, at the beginning of it, I said, communicate it to me. Tell me how you're gonna do this. It's not just a form. It's a living, breathing conversation document. Fell apart completely. And he said, I get it now.
And one of the things that I reflected back on that you said, Glenn, which was kind of a pay it forward, but also kind of a selfish comment as a participant in the industry. You said that we'll all do better if everybody understands how the process works, so that the offers that come in on your listings will be better qualified if our colleagues understand how to proceed with this transition. And to me, that was really interesting because it's a double benefit, because number one, You're trying to up the professionalism to make your job a little bit easier and the process for your clients better. And secondly, you're probably going to attract people to your team by sharing the process that you are offering your team to the rest of the community, the real estate community.
Yeah.
Because I think if everybody else doesn't know what they're doing, it's going to make our job a hell of a lot harder, right? And transactions might get stalled. And I'm not even sure how well prepared the real estate community, attorneys are in New Jersey, for example, to deal with this. I haven't really thought through the impact on, title companies closing stuff if there is going to be much in Florida. Um, but there's a lot of moving parts here that, we're all evaluating. Yet on the other hand, our team members are looking up to us and thinking that we have all the answers, right? Do you ever feel like a team member asks you something and they have absolute expectation that you know the answer and you're like, that's an interesting one. So anyway, we're under the microscope. Our team members are you're looking to us for strength and guidance in navigating through this. And how long do you think it's going to take before all this, what would I call it, uncertainty works itself out? And what do you think, Patrick? You think it's going to be done by November 6th, or we got a longer road?
I think we got a little bit longer of a road ahead. I do think in the first couple of months, there's going to be a lot of questions that are left unanswered. And I think the agents that are getting their buyer agencies signed, for an example, as a buyer's agent, are the ones that are going to have the leg up. If you're not practicing that right now, come August 1st, you're going to be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, it's August 1st in New Jersey, and I guess the 17th for a lot of the rest of the country.
Yep.
But Patrick, when you talk about that, number one, it's a compliance piece, right? It's basically it's the new law of the land. And some people are looking at it saying, hey, I need to meet the standard and comply with the rules of our industry. But I think there's another tribe and another group and mindset who are saying that this gives me the ability to redefine how business gets conducted in a positive way, right? Because if we can divorce ourselves from our knowledge of how the business operated before and look at it and say, now the business is truly fairer because each vested party has their own contract. Okay. And I'm going to repeat this because I think it's worthy of sharing with your team members and your peers, because before a transaction was governed by two contracts. And the first contract was the listing agreement between the seller and the real estate agent slash broker. The second agreement was between the buyer and the seller. What was missing in that chain of events? Patrick, what was missing?
The agreement between the buyer's agent and the buyer.
It's so obvious, right? If you haven't had your own norms, right? You're like, why is there not an agreement there? Why are they all free agents running around doing whatever the heck they want to do? And the listing agreement clearly defines, a period of time, a price, okay, and compensation. And it also defines the seller's desire to compensate a broker assisting in the sale of their home. What better could there be for buyers agents and buyers reps than a contract that defines the relationship between the buyer and the representative, including the compensation? Okay, this is really, if we separate ourselves from the norms, this is common sense. Okay. And does it matter if a seller's putting out 0 or putting out 3%. Paul Texera, I don't know if you're someplace where you could talk, but does it matter if you're having a conversation with a buyer, they're committed to buying? Does it matter if the listing agent puts out a co-op comp of 0 or 3?
No, not at all.
Could putting out 0 compensation benefit your buyer? No, I completely disagree. And can I tell you why?
Why?
If somebody puts out 0 compensation, how much will there be more or less activity on that house if they're not cooperative?
Less.
Will there be more or less people that perceive their ability to qualify to buy that house
Less.
because they're worried about paying the commission, right?
Correct.
I could easily make an argument that, you know what, Paul, we're going to look at the sellers that refuse to offer compensation, because in most cases, we're going to have an advantage when we negotiate with less competition. How does that sound to you, Paul? I think we might have just lost him, but you see where I'm going with this. You can take that and turn it into a positive for opportunities for buyers, right? And you can put into the agreement that the seller is going to pay 3% towards the buyer's closing costs, or 3% towards the buyer's commission. Is there anything that would stop you from doing that? No. And how many times have we gotten our buyers a better transaction under preferential price and terms because the seller was unreasonable and asked a number that was, outside the range, outside the marketable range, right? They were asking 700 and their house is worth 6.25, and you wind up getting it for 575 because they had to do 3 price cuts. Okay, so these are all things that our clients and our team members are looking at us for leadership. Most people think sellers not offering any compensation, my client can't go ahead with that. Well, there's nothing stopping you from asking, right? That's called a negotiation. Okay, so that can benefit buyers. And I think the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, no compensation. I need to come up with 3% more, 2% more to pay my buyer's agent, a showstopper. And it's really not. It's what would I call it? It's a recalibrating our thought process on how it works. Okay. And engaging conversations and maybe, taking the time to work through 1 or 2 of your team members' first transactions will give you insight into what the challenges are. And maybe you can share that on these calls so that we can all benefit from what you learned, right? Because the people who are part-time, not committed, they have very, 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 very low chance of navigating through the transition that we're experiencing, right? And if we don't know how we're going to answer, this is the next question that's going to be coming. We navigate. Hold on. We navigate the NAR changes. We navigate any of the local legislative changes. Then we're going to have consumers that are going to say, "Oh, rates are coming down. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for rates to come down." And prices might be coming down too. So do we have our narrative, our conversation on how we're going to address those questions or concerns? Does anyone on this call believe rates will be lower in 90 days and 120 days?
They will.
I think if rates go down, it's then prices are going to go up, and then people are really not going to be able to afford to buy a home. I think so. I don't think that can happen.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I think rates are going to come down. I don't think it's going to be substantially enough to start a fury, but I think they're going to come down.
So as team leaders, we need to have dialogues with our clients who say, I'm gonna wait and see for rates to drop. We've talked about this, a lot of times, but we need to reinforce that. because people are like, oh, well, the Fed's going to drop rates in September and again in February is what the experts say. So a consumer may have a tendency to say, hey, let me wait. And it's our job to educate them and give them the facts so that they can take action.
Rob, is that an actual typical dialogue? Like, are people actually saying that? I don't hear any of that from my team. I don't hear any of that at all about rates. We have no rate conversations whatsoever. Like, I couldn't tell you if in the last 18 months if we've had it at all in our calls.
Well, let me
Are we
ask,
just making, is the industry making a problem is my question? Because we don't discuss it that way, but we also don't ever have anyone say that, like I'm stepping out because of rates.
well,
Health issues, yeah, but not rates.
well, I think you through cycles, you've seen people say, hey, I think rates are going to fall, so I'm not as motivated, or I'm going to wait. So maybe, Glenn, the code word is weaken motivation because they feel that time is going to help them as rates drop, right? So if you're out looking at properties and they're not as motivated because they feel like 2 months from now, the outlook will be better because the rates will be lower. They might say, hey, if I have to pay an extra $5,000, I'll pay 0.5% less in interest. So it will more than offset it. So I can afford to be picky.
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't hear any of that. That's why I've heard it a couple times on our calls and I'm like, we don't have any of that.
Patrick, how about you? Do you hear any of that on the resi side or Charles, anybody?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot.
I would say we got some people on the sidelines that are waiting for rates to drop. I think that's how you know if people are really thinking about it, is like that they would like to buy, but they only want to buy at a certain rate.
Right. And that's where it comes to education on, when the rates do drop, they can take advantage of refinancing and not have the competition. And I'm going to steal Glenn's term, stop the clock, right? Where you're paying rent. Once you get into the home ownership arena, there are so many things that happen that are positive. Okay. Equity appreciation, positive. Rates going up when you're in home ownership is positive, right? Because you're locked in. Rates going down is positive because you can refinance, right? You've stopped the clock, you've gotten into the game. But if we don't educate them, somebody might say, well, if I knew rates are going to be lower a year from now, why don't I wait a year? Very logical.
But
Okay.
in that year, they gotta pay $50,000 in rent.
That's where you have to break it down, Michael. And I'm not concerned about us on this call. I'm concerned about us, reinforcing that and having the behavior with our team members who are watching everything that we do. And if the team members aren't engaging with us regularly, how are they getting their information? They're probably getting it from media or secondhand, who all have either a negative bias or an alternative motivation.
Hey, Rob, this is Charles. What I've seen is when working with people who really want or need to buy, there's really not much concern about the rate per se, because I've seen houses go up despite the rate increases. So it's more or less the other people who aren't as motivated. On the commercial side, what I've seen is there's a lot of cash in the market. Those are the people who I like to work with. I'll work with the others in the market right now.
So, yeah, and I think on the commercial investment side, Charles, it's math driven, right? But on the residential side, which is the majority of our business, it's 99% emotional, right?
Yep.
And nobody wants to align themselves with somebody who doesn't have certainty.
Correct.
So if somebody's there are so many, there's for 2.5 years, we've been 50% below, not 50% below the trend line for home purchases.
That's correct.
Okay. It should be around 6 million, 5.8 to 6 million based upon the population and
now it's floated around 4.6, 4.7.
well, no,
forecasted.
That's
by end of year.
Right, that's the positive forecast, but we've been, I think it was 3.9 for 23, and we're forecast 4.1, 4.2 for this year, which is almost $2 million, 2 million units, or 50% fewer units than than what we need to have a normal economy.
Correct. Mhm.
There's a tremendous amount of pent up demand. Has anybody seen a lot of rental units being built?
Yes, but I'm not seeing them being occupied as much as they used to be.
That's interesting.
We have 7,000 in my area, 1,000 in 3 towns.
Yep.
Insane amount.
I mean, in Union,
Here in Newark, we have 15,000 units approved to be built.
Right, but other
But no-
what I'm
but
seeing
not
in
all- they're not being built.
go ahead, Charles.
I was just going to say, like in Montgomery Township, where I work and live, they just did a new development. I think it was Van Cleef next to the ShopRite Shopping Center. And I think it was completed like 3 months ago. And at most, I see the same 4 cars parked out front. And it's, I think it's 80 to 120 units with low and moderate income. And the rental rates are like 3,000 to 5,000 per month.
So Charles and I have experience in making some bad forecasts, right? When we worked with a developer.
Well, no, the forecasts were good. It was the quality of the developers.
Well,
I mean, you look at the pre-sold units in Rahway, for example, right?
well, I think that that they miscalculated being the equity participants. They thought the prices would continue to go up and up and up in a really adjusting market. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of these developers, you can make numbers look really good by just saying, "Hey, I'm going to collect $4,600 a month for a 2-bedroom rental," in a upper end community where you have some amenities and some things that are cool, but I don't think it's going to be sustainable, right? So there might be a boom in buyers who get rental fatigue, right? They get a fatigue, like it might be exciting for the first year to have a fitness center and a pool and all these amenities in your building, but pretty soon you get tired of paying those numbers, and those numbers traditionally could afford, a better than average home in that community. I mean, some of these rental rates that they're asking are astronomical, at least in Union County. I don't know about what you're seeing, Glenn, in your area.
Crazy.
Like are they amenity rich properties they're building?
That's all they're building right now. Yep.
Yeah, there can't be that much of a demand. Like there was a presumption that the millennials are not going to want to be homeowners, but I think that perception is falling apart. And we all have a abundant database of people who weren't successful in buying, and we just need to reach out to those people with the correct message, explain to them that the process is like we have our own feelings, right? And my feeling is that this was a money grab for attorneys, right? To make a whole lot of money, and probably people who were in the class for the class action will get paid, 20, 50, $100 after administrative fees and everything else. So it's not a real change, but I have to divorce myself from that opinion, especially when I talk to team leaders and agents, because it doesn't serve us. And if I take 2 steps back and I say the 3 contract process is truly beneficial for our industry, because we can now negotiate a fee that's fair for the services that we deliver, right? There's always been flat fee listing companies. As long as I've been around, you could pay $500 and put it into the MLS. That's not been a solution that works. Okay. So now is the time for us to inspire and educate our team members. And if you look at it from a bigger picture, like Glenn does, to educate the industry so that the market moves, so that he can sell his listings, because the competitors at least understand the forms and the process and why it's happening the way it is. And then, we need to master the communication piece so that people take action that's in their best interest. I mean, there's a tremendous opportunity right now, and it's growing as others are frozen or concerned with what's happening. People don't want to listen to somebody that's negative. You don't want to work with somebody that's negative. If your stockbroker told you that stocks, they're at all-time highs, you don't want to invest, it's very risky. You would either, put your money into a CD at the bank, or you'd find a different stockbroker. And if we're in this industry here and we can't inspire and educate people on how to be successful and how to navigate through it, the only people I believe that shouldn't be buying is, hey, I need to sell in 1 to 3 years, and I want to make sure that the property is going to appreciate a certain number, because nobody can tell you 1 or 3 years. I have my beliefs that things will continue to go up, but everybody else should be educated and in the game, buying or not buying based on accurate information from inspired, positive people, not from people who are concerned about politics or regulation or motivation for changes. Okay, the change is here regardless of why, but the 3 contract system, I think, is better than the 2 contract system. And the people who do an excellent job will get compensated fairly. It's probably 1 to 3 times a week that I get a call from a manager saying, so and so is pissed off because the listing agent got a 3% commission, only put out 1.5, or only put out 1%. And you know what? If we negotiate our commission on the buy side, it doesn't matter what the listing agent puts out or what the seller's offering, because we've established our value and our compensation at the onset. So I'm going to leave you with that, and hope you have a phenomenal week. And, at this time, we need to focus on the positive things that are going to move us in the direction we need to go, not on, the negative, the uncertainty, or, even worse, the politics of the next, 4 months, 3.5 months. Everybody have a really great week. If you have any questions for me, text me individually. I'd be glad to help you out, and look forward to seeing you Friday and next Monday. Have a great week, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.